Educators have a responsibility to draw students into possible crisis. That's a real sentence. And then they also are meant to structure the environment and experiences around the student to get them to go in a particular direction. It's cult indoctrination. It's knowingly, willfully, and deliberately cult indoctrination. But other scholars in the same domains confirm this for us. There's another paper from 2019, two scholars, Torres and Ferry. They say it explicitly. In a paper called Not Everyone Gets a Seat at the Table, they say it explicitly that this is what their model of education represents, that it's and I mean it, that it's indoctrination. Here's how they said it. For all the criticism teachers receive for, quote, indoctrinating students, turning them into liberal-minded crybabies, not much has been said in defense. At the very least, a shy denial is made. It is time for educators to own this criticism and admit that is exactly what we do. There it is in black and white. It's on page 33 of Not Everyone Gets a Seat at the Table. You can read these quotes in The Queering of the American Child, where Logan Lansing put them. He found these quotes, actually. I did not. But what Kevin Kumashiro is describing is actually worse than the indoctrination that Torres and Ferry are talking about, saying that that's exactly what they do. A cycle of inducing crisis and then resolving it toward a particular doctrine isn't indoctrination. It's trauma bonding. That's a practice of ideological transformation or thought reform or brainwashing or cult grooming. So it can be pretty plainly said, queer theory practices thought reform. And it practices thought reform because queer theory is the doctrine of a religious cult. We already see that that cult is based on sex and that it primarily targets children and that it has little or nothing to do with being gay. So that pretty much lays out my primary thesis. That's what queer theory is. Now, of course, fine, it's a cult. What now? Well, nobody joins a cult to join a cult. So you want to have in mind that the people in it don't know it's a cult. And in fact, they may not even know that they are subscribed to queer theory, or that queer theory is a critical constructivist ideology of sex, gender, and sexuality. They probably don't know those things, as a matter of fact. But people don't, the point is, people don't join a cult to go find a cult and join it. Nobody says in the morning, hey, I'm going to get up and go find a cult and join a cult because I don't have anything better to do. People join a cult because they are suffering in some way, and the cult comes in parasitically and offers them some false resolution to their suffering. It seems like something that will get them out of loneliness, out of spiritual malaise, out of vulnerability of some kind. Virtually everyone who has ever escaped a cult tells this same story. They wanted to belong, they wanted a social circle, they wanted understanding, they wanted purpose in life, they wanted something to do. The cult preys upon these people and slowly locks them in. One of the tools they use is trauma bonding. One of the tools they use is separating people from their family and friends. What's trauma bonding, though? That sounds bad. Besides what Kevin Kumashiro says is the point of queer education or education for social justice, trauma bonding is as harmful and manipulative as it sounds. It is the technique of cult initiation, I should say, and abuse. It's basically like hazing. The basic formula is really simple. First, you traumatize your targets until you've harmed them enough for the process to work, and then you celebrate them when they do what you want, and you don't celebrate them or even punish them more when they do what you don't want. That's it. They will bond with the people traumatizing them because of the rewards they get when the traumatic experience is lightened up. This is what Robert Lifton in Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism refers to as an alternating cycle of harshness and leniency. And that's key to how cult bonding works, or thought reform works, as a matter of fact, which is basically the same thing. So in queer theory, what you do is you take people, particularly kids, and you tell them the world isn't at all the way that it seems. And in fact, neither are they. And it isn't the way that they've been led to believe. If they're different, it's because they're oppressed. If they feel uncomfortable, it's because society doesn't like people like them. They're probably different than they've always been told. Maybe they've been lied to about themselves. They've certainly been lied to about other people and how society should be. And it's been holding them back and making them feel bad. And maybe instead it's, well, maybe you're not in that category, but the way you act hurts other people. You're hurting people. That's what Kevin Kumashiro actually said. Now, if you're interested in exploring further, Even though you're young, you should explore these feelings, these guilt, anxiety, anger, sadness. Weren't those the ones he talked about? Discomfort with your body, discomfort with your sexuality, discomfort with your social environment, discomfort with your parents. If you're uncomfortable with any of this for any reason, maybe your body is wrong. Maybe your family is wrong. Maybe there's somebody else who you really are that you don't know about. And society just doesn't want you to be who that person is. Your parents don't want you to be that person either. And if your parents disagree, maybe they're going to disagree. Maybe they shouldn't be included in these decisions. Maybe you need to trust a trusted adult instead. Maybe you need a school counselor. Maybe you need the faculty member in charge of the Gay Straight Alliance. Maybe you need a teacher who has the flag up that represents that they're a safe space and that they won't tell on you. Maybe you need a queer family. Queer theory is then offered as the lens that resolves all the resulting confusion, shock, dissonance, pain, guilt, anxiety, sadness, anger, and vulnerability. That's how this works. And then what happens next is that you affirm and celebrate them when they show interest. If they get interested in this, think, oh yeah, maybe that's right. Maybe I am different. Maybe society's not for me. Maybe my parents wouldn't like me thinking this or doing this. Maybe I was made wrong. Maybe I'm in the wrong body. Maybe I'm in the wrong family. Then you celebrate them. You lead them to believe that they're making brave decisions that are worthy of interest and respect. You coerce them and their social groups to participate in this ritual of affirmation and tacitly threaten anyone who doesn't want to go along with it. Or maybe not even tacitly. Maybe you talk about how not inclusive they are and how they're part of the problem and how they're hurting people's feelings. You make the people who are taking the path feel like they belong and that they, just for being who they are special and have a special purpose in the world to fulfill, to change the world, to transform the world, to make it more accepting of people like them who don't get to feel that way, or others that they know, their friends. You teach them special words that describe the very small but growing number of people who identify just like they do, outside of the norm, outside of what society and their parents consider legitimate. This is the trauma bonding process of queer theory, in particular in schools. This is also called programming or grooming, and it takes predictable paths. The first thing it does is it leads people into emotional vulnerability. That's what Kevin Kumashiro said. What I just described, by the way, was lead them into emotional crisis and then structure their experiences so they resolve those crises in the direction you want them to go in. That's all I described. But it leads people into this emotional vulnerability and into a kind of a path is offered to resolution, and that generates personal and social interest, which is followed up by psychological and social commitment. They don't want to let the people down that they've so far impressed. They want to keep feeling brave and unique and different and special. So they get a psychological commitment, but also a social commitment. These people have invested in them. These people care about them. These people are supporting them and affirming them in their journeys. And you're going to let them down if you just bail out and think maybe it's not for you. This is then deepened into an increasingly deep social and emotional commitment to the cult that's achieved largely through repeated cycles of trauma bonding techniques. That's how they do this. That's what it means to lead people into crisis and structure their environment so that the crisis resolves in the desired direction.